Hi, I'm Jason. This is my son Jack, and we've got a story to tell. I think you're going to want to sit down for this. If you followed our journey for very long, you already know that Jack was diagnosed with autism at age 3, along with a host of comorbid conditions such as seizures and high anxiety, severe obsessive compulsive disorder, and an intellectual disability, which means cognitive impairment. So it's been a roller coaster journey for us as a family. We've sought to include him in all the stuff that we do, but we've always longed to know what's going on in his head. And we only got glimpses. We got waves of progress and then regression. I asked what the waves meant one time. I filmed a video. A lot of people saw it and wondered with us. It even led to a book. Well, Jack is 17 now, and our greatest desire as a family has always been to know him, to know what's going on in his head. But after so many false starts, including a brief burst of text messaging 2 years ago, I started to let that desire go. In fact, I preached a sermon saying that presence is better than language. There were no words, but I was okay with that, you know? And most of my life, I haven't been okay with that. Most of my life with him, I haven't been okay with that. But I think I'm more okay with that now. You know why? Because I got something better. Presence. I meant every word. But just hours after I preached that sermon, something happened, and our lives changed. I watched a documentary called Spellers. It was about 8 different young people who were much like Jack with similar diagnoses and were unable to speak. But every single one of these young people had learned to communicate by using these large boards with letters cut out. I have heard of these kinds of cases before. I'd seen people able to communicate fluently, but I always assumed they were outliers. The documentary made an audacious claim that no, they weren't outliers. They maintain that for people like Jack, there's no intellectual disability, but rather a brain-body disconnect called apraxia, which cripples a person's fine motor skills and makes communication nearly impossible. They said that if you trained a person's motor skills, then you could learn to overcome that brain-body disconnect and learn to communicate independently. My wife and I wept through that documentary. And by the end of it, she was already setting up an appointment with practitioners in our state. The next week, Jack had his first appointment. And when he met his practitioner, she looked him in the eye and said this, "I know you're smart. I know you've been listening and watching everything for the past 17 years, and I know it's all in there. But your body's not your friend, so we're going to train your body so you can spell for me." I wasn't sure I could believe that. Could it be that after all these years we'd been wrong about Jack? That he's not intellectually disabled? Could he actually be as smart as his peers? Well, they started doing all these lessons where they'd read to him about real subjects, all age-appropriate lessons that I immediately thought were just too advanced for him. And then they'd ask him questions about what he had just read. And he would spell out the answers on these letterboards, just with a pencil, just pushing it right through the letters. Now, he struggled at first, and he had to get tons of coaching, even directing him to the letters. His practitioner would say, over more. And I was skeptical, because I'm like, okay, what are you proving? But she would tell me over and over again,
"We know he knows the answer already. We're just training his motor."
I wasn't sure I could believe that, but I loved the way they were presuming competence. In fact, that was the entire mantra. Presume competence. Always presume competence. Now, I knew Jack could read, and I knew that he was listening some of the time, so I thought I was presuming competence, but all of this still seemed like a bit of a stretch. But then, on July 27th of this year, his practitioner threw out a question to test his prior knowledge. She asked him, Who coined the term Iron Curtain? I watched as he went for a W, and then an I, and then an N, and then an S, a T, an O, and Winston he spelled, and then Churchill. Winston Churchill coined the term Iron Curtain. That was the right answer. That same morning, she asked him about Galileo. Where was Galileo born? Italy. And what did he prove with his invention, the telescope? He proved that the Earth orbits the sun. My mind was blown. How did he know this? Well, in subsequent weeks,
We discovered that Jack knows a lot of things.
What was Virgil's masterpiece?
The Aeneid.
What was Hamlet's most famous line?
To be or not to be, that is the question.
Can you calculate the area of Stonehenge and show your work?
Yes. 7,850 meters.
In your own words, tell me what a patent is.
A patent is a form of protection that manufacturers use to keep their goods safe from competitors.
Who was the 5th president?
James
Who
Monroe.
was the 6th president?
John Quincy Adams.
7th president?
Andrew Jackson.
8th president?
Martin Van Buren.
9th?
William Henry Harrison.
35th?
John F. Kennedy.
40th?
Ronald Reagan.
What did Ronald Reagan say to Gorbachev in Berlin?
T and E and A and R and D and O and W and tear down T and H and I and this W and A and L and L.
and that's when we got it. This boy, this young man, he's been watching and listening to everything he's seen and heard, but he's not been able to tell us. For 17 years, he's been stuck in his head. Not only is he not cognitively impaired, Jack might be the smartest person I know. In the months since then, we've continued to spell with Jack every day. Sarah and I, during the weekday, and then him going on Fridays to see his practitioner. And we're constantly helping him improve in his confidence and his accuracy, his muscle memory, basic fundamentals of movement, starting from boards with big letters to a single board with all 26. From known questions to prior knowledge questions to eventually to open questions, which he has to come up with his own answers to. Open questions are the great prize for all of us because they allow him to finally let us into his head after all these years. Most importantly, they set his thoughts free. Now, they told us at first it would probably be a year, maybe even 2, before Jack reached open communication. But he was ready.
If there's one thing you want the world to know about Jack Haig, what is it?
That I am smart.
If you had a motto, what would it be?
Always cheerful.
If you had your own festival, what would it be called?
The Festival of Happiness.
That focus on cheerfulness and happiness is incredible considering what Jack told us that he's going through.
I am so mad with my body. I am in a state of assault all day and night, each and every day and night. I keep hoping for a cure soon. I like it when my parents tell me that they love me despite my body not showing it. I shall make them proud one day.
I asked Jack if he wanted to write a letter to our home church that he's grown up in, and he said yes. This is what he said. Ready? Get it. D and E and A and R and C and H and get it, U and our end.
Dear church elders, I need sensory input from singing every service. Songs I like are the ones about Christ's love for us. I must answer to God about celebrating every day despite my autistic body. I am talking to you through spelling, which is perhaps the best thing that has taken place in my life. I am one of the axed people in society because my body does abnormal things my brain tells it not to. Thank you for believing that I can do a lot of things, even if I am talking to you through a letterboard.
Spelling is transforming Jack's world and ours. For the first time in his life, Jack is advocating for himself. He's told us things like, "Those glasses hurt my head on the right side," and "I prefer Chick-fil-A's waffle fries to McDonald's fries," and "I would like to listen to classical music before bed." And today, he pleaded with us. He said, "I am asking everyone to assume I am a smart guy." Friends, please presume competence. It's time to start believing in our kids. It's time to start listening to non-speakers like Jack. Presuming competence has unimaginable upside, and it doesn't really cost us anything. The only thing it might require is a little bit of hope. And I know hope is a scary thing for families like ours. But for us, you guys, I promise you, it's been so worth it. If you want to know more about spellers and about this entire world, there's a lot of questions surrounding it. If you have questions, I totally understand. Lots of people are looking into all of this. I'm not an expert. I'm just a dad whose world's been turned upside down in the best possible way. But if you want to know more, I encourage you to go to iask.org or spellers.com. There's lots of frequently asked questions in there and links all over the place to explain apraxia and look at what's going on. Better yet, you could go to spellersthemovie.com and watch the documentary there. As for Jack, I promise you, his story has just begun. This guy's got a lot to say, and I cannot wait to hear it.